Ruckus Radio presents Mob Stories. Now, a lot of you new subscribers have subscribed to this channel because of the little news snippets or the stories that I put out on the mob. And a lot of the comments were like, hey, Big Rich, can you continue this series with the mob stories? And I said, you know what, cool. So, I had the art department make me a banner. And, the last story I put up was about, I think, about little Al Diarco, right? Acting boss of the Lucchese family that turned informant because he was scared of Anthony Gaspipe Casso and a couple of other individuals. So I said, hey, let's start off with Anthony Gaspipe Casso. Anthony Salvatore Casso is an American mobster and former underboss of the Lucchese crime family. During his career in organized crime, Casso was regarded as a homicidal maniac in the mafia, and he admitted to the government for being responsible for 36 murders, but most likely committed many more. Former Lucchese captain and government witness Anthony Asatero once said of Casso, all he wanted to do is kill, get what you can, even if you didn't earn it. In interviews and on the witness stand, Casso has confessed to involvement in the murders of Frank DeChico, Roy DeMeo, and Vladimir Reznikov. Casso also admitted to several attempts to murder Gambino family boss John Gotti. Following his arrest in 1993, Casso became one of the highest ranking members of the mafia to turn informer. In 1998, however, the U.S. government rescinded Casso's plea agreement and dropped him from witness protection program. Later that year, a federal judge sentenced him to 455 years in prison. Let's go back in the past a little bit, all right? Born in South Brooklyn, Casso was the youngest of three children of Michael and Margaret Casso. Each of the Casso's grandparents had immigrated from Campania, Italy during the 1890s. His godfather was Salvatore Calambrano, a made man in a capo regime in the Genovese crime family, which maintained a powerful influence on the Brooklyn docks. Casso dropped out of school at 16 and got a job with his father as a longshoreman. As a young boy, he became a crack shot, firing pistols at targets on a rooftop, which he and his friends used as a shooting range. Casso was a violent youth and a member of the infamous 1950s gang, the South Brooklyn Boys. In 1958, he was arrested after a rumble against Irish-American gangsters. Casso later told biographer Phil Carlo that his father visited him at the police station and tried in vain to scare his son straight. He soon caught the eye of Christopher Christie Tick Fernari, the capo of the 19-hole crew in the Lucchese family. Casso started his career in the mafia as a loan shark. As a protege of Fernari, he was also involved in gambling and drug dealing. He was arrested for attempted murder in 1961 but was acquitted when the alleged victim refused to identify him. He would not see the inside of a jail cell again for over 30 years. Over the years, there have been various stories of how Casso got his nickname Gaspipe. Even though he detested the nickname, it stuck to Casso for life, and though few would say it to his face, he allowed some close friends to call him Gas. During the 1970s, Casso was one of a string of mafia associates who were suspected of turning informant for the U.S. government. In 1974, at the age of 32, he became a made man or full member of the Lucchese family. Casso was assigned to Vincent Vinny Beans Forseri's crew that operated from 116th Street in Manhattan and from 14th Avenue in Brooklyn. Shortly after becoming made, Casso became closer to another rising star in the family, Victor Amuso. Victor Amuso is going to be the next story that we do, by the way. Victor Amuso, and began a partnership that would last for decades. They committed scores of crimes, including drug trafficking, burglary, and the murders of informants. When Fernari became the Lucchese consigliere, he asked Casso to take over the 19-hole crew. However, Casso declined, suggesting that Amuso be promoted instead. Casso opted to become Fernari's aide. A consigliere is allowed to have one soldier work for him directly. In December 1985, Capo was approached by Gambino family capo Frank DeChico regarding a planned coup in his own family. John Gotti, another Gambino capo whose crew had been implicated in drug deals, was planning to kill his boss, Paul Castellano, and take over the Gambinos, and was looking for support among the acting bosses in waiting of the crime families affected by Mafia Commission trial. According to Sammy Gravano, another of Gotti's co-conspirators, who would later turn state's evidence, Casso offered the conspirators his support. Casso himself would claim he tried to talk the Chico out of participating in the coup, warning him that without official sanction from the commission, all the participants would be murdered in revenge. The hit went ahead regardless. On December 16, Casso would later denounce Gotti's actions to Carlo as the beginning of the end of our thing. As Casso was warned, Lucchese boss Anthony Carello decided to kill Gotti and the Chico, his new underboss, in revenge. Amuso and Casso were chosen to handle the assassinations and were instructed to use a bomb to try to shift suspicion to Sicilian mobsters or Zips based in the U.S. While American mafiosi have been banned from using bombs due to the risk of collateral damage, Sicilian mafiosi were notorious for blowing up their targets. Amuso and Casso made one attempt on the lives of Gotti and the Chico, planning a bomb in the Chico's car where the two were scheduled to visit a social club on April 13, 1986. Gotti canceled at the last minute. However, the bomb instead only killed the Chico and injured a passenger they had mistaken for Gotti. On July 29, 1991, due to a tip-off from the unidentified Lucchese insider, Amuso was arrested and Casso was secured as de facto boss of the family. It had been speculated that Casso himself was the source for the leak, as only a few people were privy to Amuso's location. This theory is contradicted, however, by Carlo, who states that Casso had no desire to be the boss of the Lucchese family and attempted to arrange for Amuso's escape from federal custody after his arrest. To the disappointment of Casso and the Lucchese capos, Amuso refused to leave prison out of fear for his life. As a result, the Lucchese capos asked Casso to take over as acting boss. Casso reluctantly accepted. While evading authorities for 3 years, Casso maintained control over the Lucchese family. In the process, he ordered 11 mob slayings as well as engineering a murder plot against Gotti with Genovese leader Vincent the Chin Gigante. Casso and Gigante were deeply disgusted by Gotti's murder of Castellano without the sanction of the commission. All attempts on Gotti's life were stopped, however, by the constant presence of news reporters around the Gambino boss. In early 1991, Amuso and Casso ordered the murder of Capo Peter Chiodo, a fellow Windows case defendant who had pleaded guilty without the family's approval. Chiodo barely survived an assassination attempt and subsequently agreed to turn state evidence. In September of that year, acting boss Alphonse Little Al Diarco convinced Casso had marked him for death following his failure to kill Chiodo, also surrendered and agreed to testify. Both of these defections opened the door for new murder indictments against Amuso and Casso. In another incident in 1993, Casso used Brooklyn faction leaders George Zappola and Frank Bones Papagni, as well as Lucchese consigliere Frank Big Frank Lastortino, to kill former underboss and Bronx faction leader Stephen Wonderboy Crea. However, due to the massive indictments at the time, all members of the plot, including Casso, were eventually incarcerated on various charges. Casso was arrested at a mistress's home in Mount Olive, New Jersey on January 19, 1993. This is your boy Big Rich with another mob story. We will be back soon with another story. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.